Go ask your wife. Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. Cheryl, that one was for you. In today's episode, Tony Romo returns. The Steelers stink it up. And Wilbon's Bears are the funniest new comedy of the fall season.
Tragedy, not comedy.
But we begin today with the Arizona Cardinals getting the bad news that Carson Palmer has a torn ACL and is gone for the rest of the season. Drew Stanton filled in yesterday in a Cardinals win, and he has 2 wins and a loss starting for Palmer earlier this season. Bruce Arians confidently told Peter King, quote, "We can win the Super Bowl with Drew Stanton. There is no doubt in my mind," unquote. Wilbon, how much doubt is in your mind?
Well, Tony, there's got to be some doubt because Carson Palmer was playing really well. 11 touchdown passes, only 3 interceptions. I think 2 of those were deflected passes. They weren't on him. And Palmer had just gotten to that point where he had enough left in the tank physically, but his mind is just superior. He's at the place where it's a chessboard, and he knows how to master.
So you have a lot of doubt.
I have some doubt. But there's something about the Cardinals season that seems a little bit magical. And they've got some help for Larry Fitzgerald. They can run the ball. They got these speedy young receivers who can go out there and stretch the field and leave Larry Fitzgerald extra room to work in the middle of the field. And Bruce Arians, I think, Tony, is right up there for Coach of the Year with Mike Pettin and maybe a couple other guys, Jim Caldwell. I don't have a lot of doubt. I bet you have a lot of doubt.
I have a lot of doubt.
Some. But I think the Cardinals have something going on.
I have a lot of doubt because I'm not ready to put Drew Stanton in the category of Tom Brady and Ben Roethlisberger and Kurt Warner, who filled in for injured starters and won Super Bowls. I think we got a long way to go before we get to there.
You didn't know anything about Kurt Warner when he filled in way back then in St. Louis?
Kurt Warner ended up being great, but I am not yet ready to do that. Do you know who they have coming up, Arizona?
They got a tough schedule.
They got Detroit, they got Seattle twice, they got Kansas City, they got San Francisco. Let's see how Stanton does there.
Tony, agreed. He's played. I pay attention to the Cardinals. He's played well in this season. He lost the one game they lost. It was at Denver. And they were in the game going into the fourth quarter. The Cardinals were, and that's a hard assignment.
Do you know what his percentage is of completions this year?
I'm going to say it's relatively low, like 54%.
Yeah, it's 49. Okay. And that's not good enough to win.
It's not.
Now, look, they've got a really good defense, so they don't have to score a lot of points.
That's right.
But 49% is not feeding the bulldog, pal.
He's got to up it. But, Tony, now he's in there, and he's not just going in as a short-term fill-in. He's hoping, and they're hoping, he's in the rest of the season because Carson Palmer's out. I feel so bad for Carson Palmer, who got to this point where he had – I'm not saying he was playing as well as he was in Cincinnati when he was a young physical stud. Got hurt there, too. But he got hurt there, too. He's really playing well.
The saddest thing in sports is when you see somebody go down without contact.
Untouched.
And you go, oh,
you know what the deal
that's
is.
terrible.
You do.
That's terrible.
It's too bad. Let's go to the most entertaining game yesterday, 49ers at Saints. And at the end of a spirited back and forth, there was one play, just one, that mattered above all the others. The Jimmy Graham Hail Mary reception that should have given the Saints victory, but was instead called pass interference, offensive pass interference, allowing the Niners to ultimately win an OT. Tony Graham says he left basketball because of ticky-tack calls like this. Is this what the officials should be calling at the end of a game?
There's no difference when the play is made. You have to call it the right way. It's just like in boxing. You know, if something happens really, really late, you have to call it when you see if there's a foul or something like that. I've watched that about 15 times. Each time I watch it, Jimmy Graham pushes off. He's 6'7".
He does.
The other guy is 6 feet tall.
He can move you.
He pushed off. And there's a point of emphasis this year in calling offensive pass interference. I have this one statistic that you're going to like. Going into this past weekend, not even counting that, referees had called it 67 times.
Last year?
74 all year. And he pushed. Mikey pushed.
Tony, there's no doubt that he pushed.
Yeah.
But wait a minute. I know that in that other sport that you followed even more closely over your whole lifetime, basketball, I have been sitting next to you on maybe 100 of occasions, and you have said, I want him to swallow the whistle. Yeah. And what's the difference?
I just think that pass interference is much like a block charge call. And it can go either way.
Subjective.
Now, basketball has eliminated the charge, essentially.
Yeah.
But when you see Jimmy Graham 7 inches bigger than this guy push off.
He moves him. He just lodges him.
And what we should not forget is what a great win this was for San Francisco. Because if they lose that game, they're 4-5.
Yeah.
And all the
Kaepernick
teams
on 4th and whatever that was.
Fabulous play. All the teams that they're involved with for the playoffs, Seattle, Arizona, Detroit, Green Bay, they all won.
Yeah.
They all won. So they really needed this game.
They got the official's whistle and gave it to him.
Would you not have called that?
Tony, I don't think so. And I don't disagree with your point. That if it's worthy of calling early, you should call it late. But, Tony, I want the officials not to decide. You know what? You got to tell your defensive backs. You're dealing with a 6'7" monster back there. You're going to have to protect yourself and go up and be handsy, too.
Two different guys threw the flag on that play, and they both had offensive pass interference. The most shocking result of the weekend was the Jets beating the Steelers 20-13. These were the Steelers who had gotten 12 touchdown passes and 862 yards worth of passing from Ben Roethlisberger in just the last 2 games. The Steelers were so frustrated at losing to the one-win Jets that they went over the top as the Jets were kneeling out the clock.
Look at that.
Wilbon, are we back off the Steelers bandwagon now?
Tony, I was on it with one foot, but I was looking for a handrail last week.
Yeah.
Because I just think, my theory about this season is there are no great teams. Not yet. Maybe there will be one later, but there are none now. And the Steelers, like a lot of teams, they can win 3 or 4 in a row, but then guess what? We almost ought to look for those teams to come back to the pack a little bit after they win 3 in a row. So the Steelers have a lot of it, but they also had bad losses early in the season. And so you can't just discount this now. They lost to the Jets. This qualifies as a bad loss. I'm holding on and swinging my legs over, ready to jump off the Steelers.
This doesn't qualify as a bad loss. This is a terrible loss. The Jets are awful. The Jets were 1-8 or something like that going into that game.
Yeah.
The Steelers should hate themselves for this loss. I mean, and let me tell you about the Jets' defense. See, people are going to say, well, if they played Michael Vick all year. Well, they didn't. Here's the Jets' defense. Opposing quarterbacks against the Jets this season, 24 touchdown passes and 1 interception. You cannot lose to them. I'm sorry.
You can. They did. And they did. And there's no great team, Tone. And there are other times this season we've said, how in the world could they, lose to B? Because they're not that good. They can't consistently go out and do that week after week.
What helps the Steelers is unlike,
the division is so tight.
Right. So you can still win it. Nobody really has tremendous faith in Cleveland.
No.
The 4th place team in that division is 6-4.
Yeah.
That's the 4th place team. So they're still in the playoff hunt and they're still in the division hunt. But
look at you.
That's a bad loss.
You've sprained both ankles apparently jumping off that Steelers bandwagon.
I don't think I was ever truly on it.
You're like me.
Not truly on it,
okay,
no.
All right. I'm on one bandwagon.
The Bears?
No.
Really? The Bears?
There's no bandwagon. That's been abandoned. It's in the garage. It's broken down. Arizona Cardinals. 2 NFC teams picked by nobody to start the season had big wins yesterday. The Cowboys put Tony Romo back on the field, the pitch, and it worked in a win over Jacksonville. And the Lions, still way under everybody's radar, beat a really, really good Miami team to stay ahead of the Packers in the NFC North. So, Tone, who had the more important win yesterday? More important, Cowboys or Lions?
Lions had a very, very good win, and they won it late, as they often do. I'm not ready to say Miami's a very, very good team. I understand what they did to San Diego.
They had won like 3 in a row. They're like Pittsburgh. They're like everybody else in the league.
I don't think they're very, very good. But the answer to the question is the Cowboys had the more important win. The Cowboys started out.
Jacksonville,
I understand that. But they had lost 2 in a row. If they had lost to Jacksonville in London, then they are 6-4, and then everybody's screaming, 8-8.
Their bandwagon would have been this shop, too.
Here we come. They even put Tony Romo in with 2 bones broken in his back that you and I would not have played him against Jacksonville.
We wouldn't have.
So they played it, and they coached it like they were desperate and scared.
They were.
And they needed that.
They were. And I give you all that. But the reason I'm going to, I hate to say downgrade, I'm going to grade the Lions a little bit higher.
Why?
Because the Lions beat a really good team. The Miami Dolphins saved that great play by Aaron Rodgers. I think would have won 5 in a row. The Dolphins have been playing well. Granted, Detroit at home. Here's the other thing, Tone. Detroit is like New Orleans. I know they've won 3 road games this year, but Detroit has to win at home because usually late in the season when they go outdoors, as you like to say, they tend to crumble. So I'm going to give the Lions a little credit. And by the way, again, another Coach of the Year candidate, Jim Caldwell. He's got that team not making the dumb mistakes they usually make.
Dallas was in the same position at San Francisco, that they were watching the other teams win, who they're going to be right there with in the playoff chase. And they really had to. I don't think Detroit had to win it in the way Dallas did.
They'd be behind the Packers.
Dallas's recent history is so terrible as they get into December, right, and they lose.
And the Lions' recent history is so good.
I think it would be fair to say that the 2 teams in the NFC that people can trust the least are these 2 teams.
Lions and Cowboys.
Yes, these 2 teams.
They do have some of the similar profile. I would say this about the Lions, and I don't know where this comes from. And this is why I'm going to give a credit again to the coach, Tony. The Lions have trailed at the 2-minute warning 3 consecutive weeks and won those games.
It's great. That's great. That's great.
The coach has something to do with the team believing it can win late and doing it.
Your anti-Dallas prejudice is showing through in this story.
I said they had a good win.
There is a rumor the Bears played yesterday.
Really? Can you prove it?
Well, they were on the field, but mostly they were watching Aaron Rodgers toss 6 touchdown passes in hello the first half, and then basically go to Bermuda with Olivia Munn. Well, on the final was a smooth 55-14. The second game in a row, the Bears have allowed 50+. So was this game more about the Bears or the Packers?
It has nothing to do with the Packers. This game has everything to do with the Bears, who should be firing their head coach today, not waiting the rest of the season. When you lose back-to-back 50s, which are historically the worst losses since 1923, and the team guilty of that played in Rochester, New York, which tells you how long ago that was. And the Bears are not like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers or the Bengals coming into the league in the 70s or the 60s. They've been around for all these, okay? You fire the coach, the head coach, and the coordinator, pack it up, and you bench the quarterback, who either cannot help himself or doesn't give a damn. Either way, he sits down despite his $18 million a year salary. These are embarrassing losses for a historic franchise. This is about the Bears.
Can I give you a couple of facts that you have omitted just now? First of all, they were coming out of a bye week, were they not? So they had 2 weeks to prepare. If they only had one, they'd have given up 75.
All they talked about was how well they practiced all week.
And Jay Cutler,
they're delusional, too.
Jay Cutler is 1-10 all-time versus the Packers with 21 interceptions.
It's terrible.
I understand why you're going to say it's about the Bears.
It's all about the Bears.
Yeah, well, I think it's about the Packers, and I want to go back again to Aaron Rodgers, who we have canonized on this show.
He does it all the time, so I can be about the Packers.
Since he said relax, okay, they're 5-1. They were 1-2. They're now 5-1, and Aaron Rodgers personally has 20 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. And there's one guy in football with numbers like that, Tom Brady, who has 19-1 in a 5-game stretch.
It's not a news flash.
But aren't those the MVP? Aren't those the leading MVP candidates?
Manning, Brady, and Rodgers. Come on now. I mean, you got to put them in there.
I think Brady and Rodgers are
separated. You think they separate themselves out? I think
it's like the last turn in a marathon. There's a little bit of distance.
Let me tell you who's not a golden boy. And every week you come in.
Is it going to be Jay Cutler?
You call my phone on Sunday when he throws 4 touchdown passes. He's done it a couple times. You say, get off Cutler. What a great arm he's got.
Yeah.
What about his head? What about a franchise? They're not playing for this coach, Tony. That's why you got to fire him. When you
this is not like you to fire people in the middle of the season.
No. But when you don't have your team and you think you've had a great week of practice and they embarrass themselves against a blood rival, he's got to go.
Folks, this was a bad weekend for Wilbon. Northwestern loses on the last play. So let's take a break. But coming up now, it's nail time, kids, and here's how it works. We tell the intern what we did to the sandwich he just ate, and after he stops vomiting, he picks 4 issues. Let me see what's first.
I hope people know that you're joking. We don't treat our interns that way. Thank you very much.
We don't have any interns because we treated them this way. What was the most significant result from the college football weekend?
There were a lot of good ones, Tone. There were a lot of fun games out there. I'm starting to come around to TCU like you, but that was not the most significant one, even though you predicted it. Alabama beating LSU in that atmosphere, having with no timeouts to go down the field and tie the game. Alabama beating LSU, because I think Alabama can run the table even with that difficult schedule. Mississippi State in Tuscaloosa this weekend. Alabama.
So you don't think it was Auburn losing the way they lost, fumbling the game away?
I'm not going to argue against that. I'm going to go with Alabama being proactive the way they came back and won.
Okay.
Auburn blew the game. It looked like Auburn was going to win the game. Lay it on the ground in that situation, Tony, was stunning.
Are you surprised that Alabama against Mississippi State, unbeaten Mississippi State, Alabama's a 7-point favorite coming up?
I told you they'd be a touchdown favorite.
Are you surprised that Florida State at Miami is only a 1.5-point favorite?
And you know what's going to happen? Florida State that's going to get their attention because they're a team that you don't get their attention. Their own coach, as terrific as he is, can't get their attention until late in the game. They are now going to crush Miami.
I think the most significant development over the weekend was TCU, because I now believe that
you're on the TCU bandwagon.
They beat Kansas State. They were up, I believe, 41-14 at one point against Kansas State, a team ranked in the top 10. Now I think if TCU wins out, they're going to get in, because I'm doubtful that 2 SEC teams are going to get in, even though I would rather see 4 SEC teams in than any other conference. I'm doubtful.
I got a question. A technical
Ohio
question.
State, is the Big Ten getting in?
No. How does TCU get in over Baylor when Baylor beat TCU?
Because it was by 3 points, and it was at Baylor, and Baylor's loss was a bad loss after that. It was West Virginia. West Virginia's being devalued as the season goes on.
That's about the most insane rationalization for keeping Baylor out.
I know you hate TCU, but I
like TCU. If that Utah kid scores, do the Utes have a real chance to beat Oregon?
If the kid scores, it's 14-0. Okay, Utah is at home. The crowd goes crazy. Utah's a pretty good team, Mike. They've beaten USC and they've beaten UCLA.
Oh.
And then this kid lays it down on the one and is so busy doing a dance with his teammates
got penalized
that they
in college.
forget that Oregon can take it the other way and score.
Yeah.
If I'm the coach of that team, Mike, I suspend this kid for a game.
No.
I do if I'm the coach.
You know what? If this was the pros.
He's a hot dog.
Okay. If this was the pros, you could do whatever you want. You suspend him, you fine him as much as the rules will allow.
Fine him.
Well, you can't fine the kid.
Him.
I'm not going to suspend him. You know what? Because the most humiliated kid on that campus is that kid. You let it
He's
go.
been a showboat before.
You call him
He's
in.
posed for the
bench
Heisman in an end zone before.
Bench him. You're not going to suspend
Do you want
him.
another great irony?
What?
He went to the same high school as Deshaun Jackson, who famously did that same thing, but did that in the NFL.
And you like Deshaun Jackson a lot.
Deshaun Jackson's great.
So do I. Yeah.
He's great. Does your boy Brock Osweiler have reason to be upset with Peyton Manning?
Absolutely yes. Peyton Manning walks over to the sideline 1,000 times like this. And this late in the game, and they're way up. Osweiler thinks Peyton's coming out. He's going to go get his helmet. And whoops, Peyton says, later for you, dog. I'm going back in the game. We're up 100. I could get hurt, which would ruin this team's chances. John Fox has got to say at that point, you know what, Peyton, enough. I got to develop this guy. So if you and your 57-year-old behind get hurt, we have to have him out there ready to play. So just come have a rest, have a chill. That's not good.
Can I ask you a question?
What?
Why didn't Brock Osweiler have his hat on? Why did he have to turn and go get his hat?
Because he's Peyton's caddy.
He knows he's going to play in that
Peyton's
situation.
caddy.
The greatest thing that ever happened to Brock Osweiler is being mentioned in the same sentence on this show with Peyton Manning. Because here's the difference between the two of them. One is going to Canton, and one is Brock Osweiler. I understand his frustration. I get that part.
How does this help Denver
going forward? He got in for the whole fourth quarter.
But my point, Peyton never wants to let a guy take a snap. Joe Theismann always told us
I'm going to tell you this.
I'm never letting the backup take a snap.
I'm going to tell you this. I lay that on John Fox, as you do as well. Chain the guy to the bench.
That's right. You say, Peyton, you're too valuable. You can't go back out there. Would you, Mr. Tony Kornheiser, have been so chill if a Seahawk landed on your dome?
No, I would not have been like this. I really admire this guy and how almost relaxed he seems. That thing has talons that can rip your eyes out.
Well, you
it's
can't
a
move.
big bird.
You stay still.
Do you remember Howard Walsh at Columbia?
Of course.
Was he playing on
Remember,
the back?
I know, we know
and
him.
a big red-tailed hawk swooped down
We've
and
seen
knocked
that
him
hawk.
down. And knocked him down. So I would have started flailing like a lunatic, and it would have taken my eyes out.
You would have had no eyeballs today.
I know.
You've been doing the show with Stevie Wonder wraparound glasses if you had done that.
I know, but at least I could play.
This is like when you go to Alaska, and they tell you when they're bear, just walking around like deer at Rock Creek Park, and they say, do not try to run from the bear. Because just like, you outrunning, Carl Lewis. You're not going to outrun the bear.
Yeah, but if you're with a little old lady.
You post up, you stand and make yourself large and remain calm. And suppose there's no lady there.
So you're going to get big. That's your deal.
Post up. You got to get large. Hands up, post up in the paint.
Let's take one last break. But Wilbon, happy time, people. Happy 51st birthday, Mike McCarthy. McCarthy became head coach of the Green Bay Packers in 2006. Since then has won 88 games, including a win last night over your Bears. Wilbon, McCarthy has had the great benefit of Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. Little known fact, McCarthy once worked as a toll collector on the Pennsylvania Turnpike.
Let's see him win 8 games with Jay Cutler. He's only 8 behind Vince Lombardi. That's the only thing you need to know in Green Bay. 8 wins behind the great Coach Lombardi.
Happy anniversary, Charles Barkley and Shaquille O'Neal. On this day 15 years ago, while playing for the Rockets and Lakers, respectively, you two got into a little scuffle. Why would anyone get into a fight with Shaquille O'Neal? Even when Barkley was fat, Shaq outweighed him by 80. Move on, the Lakers finally won, so Chuck can eat.
We're agreeing on need for Chuck to eat. There's a dinner in Arizona coming up. We don't need Chuck fasting. What does Chuck order if he's fasting?
Nothing. Happy trails to Zach Bowman trying to tackle Marshawn Lynch. Watch number 31 of the Giants being uncertain about trying to get in the way of beast mode on one of his 14 touchdowns yesterday. Smart move by Bowman. Look at what happened to Cortland Finnegan of the Dolphins, as he actually did get in the way, however briefly, of Joyce Bell of the Lions.
No, he was certain, Tom. You just the beast mode. You get in the way of him, you could be.
He didn't want it.
Trouble.
No errors of significance. We go to the big finish. There will be no charges filed against 49ers defensive tackle Ray McDonald. Your thoughts?
He's been playing. The 49ers had it right. A lot of people had it wrong. Mark Cuban wondered aloud about why the Thunder don't just tank. and go for a top draft pick. Should OKC listen?
And the NBA doesn't need more teams tanking, no. Both Jeff Gordon and Brad Keselowski fell out of the chase. Are you disappointed?
I am, although 24-year-old Joey Logano is still in there in career, but I want to see Brad Keselowski. Mario Williams had red contact lenses yesterday against the Chiefs. You like that?
No, it's creepy. Look like a vampire. Last one, Panthers and Eagles tonight. What will we see out of Sanchez?
Carolina's defense put him on his butt.
Really? You think so? We're out of time. We will try to do better the next time, and I'm Tony Kornheiser.
I'm Mike Wilbon. Same time tomorrow, knuckleheads. Check out the PTA.